In this video, we'll explore the 6 most popular hiking trails in Norway, ranked by the number of annual visitors. There's a mix of unusual rock formations, majestic mountains, exposed ridges, and tranquil valleys. So if you're planning a trip to Norway but don't know which hikes to include on your itinerary, this video is for you. Before we begin, a quick history lesson. The origins of hiking in Norway come from a surprising source, the English. During the early 1820s, Norway had a population of just under 1 million and an economy based on agriculture, timber and fishing, whereas in the UK, with a population of 11 million, the Industrial Revolution was well underway. This was a time before affordable rail travel or indeed holiday pay, so only the rich could afford to travel. Upper middle-class English tourists came to Norway looking to hunt, fish and climb mountains, whereas the very idea of walking in the mountains for leisure was bewildering to rural Norwegians, who had a saying, "Enten han spikende gal, eller så han en engelsman." Either he is mad as nails or he is an Englishman. In rural areas there weren't any hotels or tourist infrastructure, so farmers and local guides looked after the English tourists, who were often unimpressed with the straw bedding and peasant food. The reason we know this is because they wrote travel diaries and books which you can still read today. This period of early tourism coincided with the Norwegian Romantic nationalism movement, which began in 1840. Norway had recently become partially independent and was trying to find its cultural identity, so it looked to its natural beauty and rural life for inspiration. Soon after, the Norske Turistforening, or the Norwegian Trekking Association, was established in 1868, and wealthy Norwegians then began exploring their own country. That means the very basis of friluftsliv, one of Norway's most beloved cultural traditions, began in part because of English tourists. Okay, back to the present. Starting the list is Aurlandsdalen, nicknamed Norway's Grand Canyon. The name translates to Gravel Land Valley. It's a spectacular historic walking route through a valley that connected eastern and western Norway during the Middle Ages. The numerous abandoned farms dotting the landscape were once owned by farmers, many of whom left for America to start anew. The full route is a 50-kilometer walk that begins in Finse, which for Star Wars fans is where the scenes for Hoth were filmed. However, most opt to take the scenic last section between Østerbø and Vassbygdi, which is 20 kilometers long, has an elevation gain of 920 meters and takes about 8 to 10 hours to complete. The hiking season is from June to October. This challenging hike truly has it all: waterfalls, glacial potholes, and all sorts of flora and fauna, which is why it's my personal favorite on this list. Safety-wise, watch out for landslides and don't attempt after heavy rains. At number 5 is Kjeragbolten, receiving over 57,000 visitors in 2022. The name translates to the shaggy hair of a goat, a reference to the rough surfaces on the route. The 11-kilometer hike has an elevation gain of 761 meters, takes 6 to 8 hours to complete, and the hiking season is from June to October. The route is steep in the beginning, and you'll need to pull yourself up with chains. Towards the end, there's a small descent through a canyon. The trail is famous because thrill seekers get the chance to leap onto Kjeragbolten, a boulder suspended 984 meters above the fjord below. If you want to make the jump, it's not technically difficult, but it does require a sound mind. Practice jumping between 2 spots about 1 meter apart beforehand, and if you do jump, don't look down or out towards the fjord. At number 4 is Besseggen, which translates to the bear's edge. The DNT began marking the hike in 1871, and in 2005 there was some restoration work on the paths due to wear and tear. Today it's the most popular hike in Jotunheimen National Park, with 60,000 visitors in 2023. Most visitors opt to take the pre-booked ferry from Gjendesheim to Memrubu and then hike backwards towards the start point. The 13.3-kilometer route has an elevation gain of 1,097 meters and takes 8 to 10 hours to complete. The season is from June to October. The highlight is Besseggen, a 1-kilometer long ridge which requires some light scrambling to ascend. Upon reaching the top, looking backwards reveals a remarkable view of the lakes Bessvatnet and Gjenne. The former is informally known as Norway's cleanest lake with 30 meters of visibility, while the latter has an unusual greenish-blue tint because of sand particles in the water. Trolltunga, literally the troll's tongue, is the second rock formation hike on the list, coming in 3rd place with over 80,000 annual visitors. There are 3 car parks that act as starting points: P1, P2 and P3. I really want to stress how demanding this hike is. The start points are 90%, 64% and 48% of the length of a full marathon, with elevation gains of between 2,000 meters, 1,200 meters and 800 meters respectively. The hiking season is from June to September. This hike is popular with foreigners, who make the arduous journey to take a picture on the Troll's Tongue, which extends out 700 meters over the lake below. It's a sensational hike that will test the limits of your endurance, but don't approach the edge of Trolltunga. In 2015, an Australian tourist lost her balance and fell to her death. At number 2 is Gaustatoppen, which translates to the dock with gushing water. It's the highest point in Telemark County, and in many ways Norway's most accessible mountain. It was first ascended in 1810, and in 1893 a hut was built at the summit. In 1959, the Norwegian military built Gaustatoppen, a hybrid train that runs inside the mountain, which eventually opened to the public in 2010. The 9.3-kilometer route has an elevation gain of 775 meters, with a round trip taking 4 to 5 hours. The season is from May to October. The route is well marked and the incline forgiving. However, be aware that the last 200 meters are quite rocky. The 1,883-meter summit receives around 120,000 visitors annually, consisting of 75,000 Gaustatoppen passengers and 45,000 climbers. It's wildly popular because on a clear day, it's possible to see an incredible 1/6 of Norway. That's around 60,000 square kilometers, or about 1.5 Denmarks. At number 1 is Preikestolen, or the Preacher's Chair, a 25-meter squared plateau that extends over Lysefjord, 604 meters above the water below. It was discovered in 1896 by Thomas Peter Randolph, who spotted it from below whilst on a cruise. In the 1920s, there were only around 100 or so annual visitors, whereas in 2023, there were an astonishing 387,000 visitors, easily cementing it as Norway's most popular hike. The 8-kilometer route has an elevation gain of 500 meters, with a round trip taking 4 to 5 hours. For tourists, the hiking season is from May to October. Unfortunately, there have been a handful of suicides, and the first accidental death was recorded in 2020, so don't approach the edges of the plateau. Preikestolen can be seen in the Viking Season 2 finale and at the end of Mission Impossible Fallout. Parking is 250 kroner, which pays for the staff and facility upgrades, such as the new mountain lodge in 2008 and trail repairs by Nepalese Sherpas in 2013. During the filming of these hikes, I personally saw 2 mountain rescue efforts because of unprepared hikers, one of which involved a helicopter. So here are some guidelines so you can hike safely. 1. Memorize the Norwegian mountain code. 2. Clothing. Norway's varied geography means varied weather, so don't be fooled by the current conditions or even the weather forecast. At the bare minimum, you should have the following clothing. As for equipment, I recommend the following. Do's and don'ts. Do learn how to read a map, including terrain and gradients. Do download an offline map of the area beforehand. Do use toilet facilities before hiking. Do start as early as possible in the day and make a note of the expected daylight hours. Do stay on the trail. Don't hike outside of season without a guide. Don't use loudspeakers. Don't approach wildlife. Don't leave rubbish behind. Don't light fires or use disposable barbecues between April the 15th and September the 15th. One last note. As Norway's iconic hiking trails have exploded in popularity due to social media, the infrastructure has struggled to keep up. So if you're wondering why the parking fees are so high, it's to cover the maintenance and repairs to cope with the extra foot traffic. And that brings us to the end of the video. If you live in Norway, what hikes do you recommend? Click that subscribe button and let me know where I should go next in the comments. Be excellent to each other, and I'll see you in the next episode.